Hi, I'm Gary Null. I'd like to once again welcome you to our Classroom on the Air. I began doing this series over 45 years ago. It was called Mastering Life. And over the years, I have been able to present to the public some of those classrooms. I have hundreds that I completed, filmed, never shared. Well, now I am on a variety of topics, from gardening to building your own greenhouse, to understanding how to stay fit and dealing with life's problems. Today is about dealing with life's problems. The topic today is the downside of success. It can destroy your life. How so? Because there was a time when we were taught cooperation. You cooperated together with your family, with your community. When we went to war in World War II, with our whole nation. And we prided ourselves on our ability to make sacrifices, not just for our immediate people in our lives, but for the larger good. And look at how we thrived. Look at what we helped to challenge. We helped to challenge segregation and bias and racism. With women, we were right there in the 1960s and 70s, demanding that they had the same opportunities as men, and that helped create legislation that prevented discrimination. Mind you, there's no legislation you can ever create that will keep someone who has a warped view of life or other people, who has the idea that they're better than other people. Legislation and laws will not prevent that person those thoughts. It merely limits their actions to some degree. But just think of all the progress we've made with our environment. Without one woman, Rachel Carson, who wrote the book back in the mid-1960s, Silent Spring. She was just a marine biologist. She was a rather shy person. But based upon her work showing DDT being sprayed all over the place, and I grew up as a kid where it was not uncommon in the summertime for them to come down the streets in a truck and just mist the whole area. It just looked like a fog. And, you went out there, your mom says, go out there, get the DDT on you because it'll help protect you. We did so. They would go to swimming pools and spray the water. We sprayed it on our land and crops. We thought it was a good thing. It was not. Even well-intentioned people were giving us something that actually led to a lot of death and destruction. To this day, you can still find traces of DDT in people's bodies, in their bone, and in the soil. We managed through an effort, a lot of us, to ban it in 1972. I did my part by using my radio show from 1967 through 1972 on a regular basis to do exposés, have experts on, wrote articles about it, until it was finally banned. And on the day it was banned, and we all celebrated, we celebrated Rachel Carson. We celebrated Ralph Nader, who really started and formalized the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, and all the protections that we have, the protection of our food, the protection of our water. All that was from one man who was never elected to office, Ralph Nader. But he had what was called Nader's Raiders. And these were some of the brightest, most motivated law students from Harvard and Yale and MIT who came down to Washington, D.C. to join Ralph. Most left within about 3 or 4 months. They had to go back to school and go back to their life. But a small group, Dr. Sidney Wolfe and others, stayed, and they became the core of what would be the most important social issue activist group in American history. And I was happy to know some of those people. I know Ralph. Ralph has been kind enough to appear in many of my documentaries. We've wrote in the same magazine, Caveat Emptor, the very first major consumer investigative reporting magazine. Caveat Emptor, Consumer Beware, back in the early 1970s, 71, 72. And so I was starting my work, it had been in my work as an investigative journalist and also an author and a nutritionist. At the same time, he was creating over 220 different laws that we now today have benefited from, and yet most people don't even know that Ralph Nader made it a law that you had to test the water and the state and city couldn't just give you water out of a tap. They had to make sure it was clean. And the same with our food. All that from this one person, and all that from Rachel Carson. Had there been no Rachel Carson, there probably wouldn't have been Ralph Nader in the sense of what he was able to do. So all of us stand on the shoulders of people who were there first, frequently brighter, more committed. And to this day, Ralph Nader is still doing as much as he can. He has not changed. So, why is that important? Because Ralph Nader's success never ate him alive. He never had to compromise. He continued to be a voice for reason of how we can protect ourselves, our family, our children, and hold those accountable to a higher standard. Hey, make your product safer. Now, why do I say that? Because that's just one area, activism, but also the same group of us, and there were a lot of us. We were young, we were idealists, we were behind the women's movement, we were behind the movement in Washington, D.C. in front of the South African embassy. Sometimes there would only be 2 or 3 of us willing to get arrested so that the people of South Africa could be free of apartheid. We've been there consistently on the side of the people who have been marginalized and their lives adversely affected by those in power. And so we have a women's movement today. We had one then, the second wave. And one of my close friends and I wrote a major book on this called For Women Only, 1,600 pages, Barbara Seaman. And today we have Naomi Wolf, and we have others. So everyone benefits from understanding what preceded them, using the best information to go forward. Somehow today that seems to be lacking. What do I mean? There was a time where if you were an extremely talented athlete, again, apply this to every other profession, and you were acknowledged by your fans for the 6, 8, 10, 20 years you were performing as an athlete. But when you went home, you didn't go to some unique $30 mansion, or penthouse, and surround yourself by a group of people that were yes people, yes to everything. And you threw money around. No, you went back to Brooklyn, or you went back to Bronx, or wherever you lived, and everyone said, hi, how'd you do? Did well, okay. You were friends. You did not think you were different or better than them. And that even endeared you more because you related as a human being. They saw you, they grew up with you, they knew you, you were their neighbor. All that's changed, unfortunately. When I look at my own friends or acquaintances who are very successful, when I look at the more than 3,000 of the tens of thousands of people I've counseled one-on-one, and I don't do short counseling sessions, sometimes 3 to 4 hours for a single session, and I've never charged a penny to a single human being in my entire life for helping them. I find out about them because I don't start with a symptom. Oh, my elbow. Oh, this cancer growing here. Oh, my heart. No. In fact, I almost never discuss the disease. Instead, I ask, what happened in your life that you lost your sense of balance that allowed the disease to manifest, or the bankruptcy to manifest, or the loss of your relationship? What happened? And that's a door that most don't want to open. They want you to keep seeing and reminding you of how important they are. They're the dean, they're the chairman of a department, they're the highest paid athlete. Oh, if he got a $100 million contract, I want a $120 million contract. But you're both about the same quality of a basketball player. Why should you? I need more. I need people to know. I don't want a yacht. I want a super yacht. Well, someone else has a 400-foot yacht. Then I want a 450-foot yacht. Are you ever going to use it? No. Why not? I don't like sailing. But you need the yacht. Why? The same reason the person says, yeah, $100 million for that Picasso. That wasn't even a good Picasso. It's not worth $100 million. I know. Why'd you bid on it? Because in that split second, When all those people on the phones in that gallery are wanting to buy something and you show, I'll buy it. They're thinking, wow, you mean you have 120 million extra dollars that don't mean anything to you? I could have spent 200 if I wanted. Well, then why'd you buy it? What is so deficient in you? What is missing at the core of your being that you suffer from what I call the big empty? You're successful beyond measure. You're acknowledged for your success, and yet the public doesn't know. Not always do your family know. You're very insecure inside. You have to keep overcompensating. What happens when we overcompensate to succeed? To get there, climb that ladder. Everyone's on that ladder. 16 million professionals like doctors, lawyers, engineers, accountants, professors, scientists, they're on that ladder, and you keep looking at each other. But they have that apartment on they have they have that mansion. Well, they got 2 mansions, they got the car. We got 3 cars. Their kids are in state school. Ha, ha, ha. Mine's in Harvard. Yours is in Harvard. Well, I got a kid in Harvard, Yale, and Princeton. Ha, ha, ha to you. Well, my kid didn't have to study to get in. I endowed them, and suddenly, the university just let them walk right in. Not very bright kid, but I've had him tutored, and I have other people going to take their classes for them. Oh, well, my kid didn't have to have tutors. They're just brilliant. Brilliant. They were valedictorian. Yes, they were valedictorian, president of their class. Yours wasn't. You both got 4-point averages, but my kid is acknowledged for being a valedictorian. Did you ever ask your kid what they sacrificed to become valedictorian? How much time they spend in the study to master something in order to get straight A's, be acknowledged? Why don't you take a look at all the things they didn't do? Did you do those camping trips together? No? Did you just spend some days without any cell phones, just enjoying each other's company? No? Did you go jogging in the morning or after school with them? No. Did you sit down to a dinner together as a family and talk about the issues of the day, troubling issues or enjoyable issues? No. So you gave them everything they needed. You gave them the best counselors and experts to succeed, but what they didn't have was a childhood. In effect, to become valedictorian, you forced your child to be a mini adult. So they went from having no sense of who they are to only having a vision of who you expect them to be, the best. I see. And what did you sacrifice in order to become the best for a moment in time in your 15 seconds of your life? Did you ever think about the 16th minute of your life? What then? So now he's valedictorian. How's he supposed then to unwind, slow down to the quality of life? Take his time or her time enjoying friends, doing things that kids are supposed to do, and teenagers. All that was gone. So they got the gold ring. They climbed the ladder faster than anyone else. And they're burned out, and they're only 17. And now they got to go to college. But now in college, they're going to be with 4,000 other valedictorians and 4-point students. And why is a lot of these 4-point students are committing suicide? True story. Because, well, we're all 4-point students. We were all valedictorians. But when I graduate from this school, I've got an absolute job going to be waiting for me in this major Wall Street bank or corporation. And your dad doesn't own a bank or is not a board of directors. So you got to go out in the workplace like all these other people and just try to show them that you're smart, you're dedicated, you're disciplined, and you'll sacrifice anything to prove to them that their choosing you was a wise decision. Oh, and what do you sacrifice when you become successful? How about this? For every single step in your road to success, you have to give something up. No, you don't. Oh, yeah, you do. You absolutely do. Think of what it means to be successful in business. You own the business. You're taking it over from your parents who started it. So you're the second generation. They've done all the hard work. They've done the heavy lifting. They've created a name. People come to that store. Let's say it's a gourmet food store because they want the gourmet foods. And you provide them more than anyone else. And they want to know that that family energy is there. So you're the first in the store. In the morning, you're the last to leave at night. Your employees work 5 days, you work 7, because you're always on call, and there are always calls. So you get the benefit, you make the big bucks, but what happens when something goes wrong, like in COVID? You cut back, and then you finally have to close it up or sell it at a loss. But you're working every single brain cell to try to figure it out. Others can be relaxed. You can't be. You're expected to always be on call. So what happens? How about your dog? Your dog is 7 years old and you've been feeding him crap because you didn't take the time to study how a dog can live into their 20s. Because that would have taken time and energy. And all your energy and time is in your success, maintaining it, holding on to it. And now you find out your dog has to be put down. The dog only wanted to be with you, totally loyal, always loving, always forgiving. And you just, I didn't have the time. I had to get to work. Okay. And what if it was not just working in a store, a home business, but also working as a professional? Look, you have no idea how hard it was to get to this position of being the chief surgeon here. And I've got all these cases and all these famous people want me to do the surgery. And that's why I'm making, $20,000 a surgery. Okay, well, we do 3 surgeries in a day. I've just made $60,000 in a day. And if I'm doing this 4 days a week, then that's what pays for that third home. And that's what pays for all of my kids' special education. That's what pays for all that jewelry. And I see. So when are you going to slow down? Soon. When I have reached all my goals, then I'm going to have a chance to spend time with my kid. Your kid will have his own kids by the time you slow down, and that part of your life is gone. It doesn't happen again. If you're not there for the moments in your life that are important, those moments will never be lived again, ever. I saw this with my own friend, who was one of the best examples of a motivational speaker, had so much work, took it all because it gave him a powerful livelihood and the big apartment overlooking Riverside Drive Park. And I used to say, "Where's your dog?" I don't have, I ran it out this morning, but I got someone that's going to walk it and another walker walking it in the early evening because I got stuff tonight. I got lectures tonight. Why is that important? Well, it's $20,000, Gary. $20,000. I remember when I used to make $2,000 for a lecture. Now I'm booked solid with $20,000. But you have no time for you. When was the last time you read a book? Just sat, relax, and read a book. When was the last time you asked your friends, let's go someplace. Let's go on a trip for a weekend. Fly someplace, drive someplace. Let's go to the mountains. Let's walk the Appalachian Trail. When was the last time you actually lived like a human being is supposed to live, with some balance in your life? Balancing all responsibilities. And if you can't, then surrender the responsibilities, creating the imbalance. Because wherever you're successful in one area, you are concomitantly and concurrently imbalanced in the other areas. How much time did you spend with your partner? No, he understands. He understands. This is important. But we're going to spend time together. And 5 years later, there's a heart attack. He's dead. The dog, she called me the day she had to take her dog in. 7 years old. It was obese, had hip dysplasia. Why? Because she didn't take the time to learn how to feed it. I'm her friend. I did a PBS special on stations on PBS on natural pet care. I wrote a book on it. My dog lived to 24, another dog to 22, and they both died from unnatural causes, hit by a car on the property. Someone stupid driving who shouldn't have been on my property. And but they were healthy at 22 and 24. I got a ring-tailed lemur, the oldest I know of ever, 33. They normally die at 16 to 18. Taking your time to understand the real and authentic needs of everything in your life that you're responsible for means you're taking time for that. That's a part of that balance. So if it means that then I'm going to do less speaking engagements, I'm going to do less speaking engagements. I turned down, I won't tell you how much money it was, but this is in the 1970s, and I could have used the money. And I turned down what was the largest contract ever offered that I'm aware of to be a spokesperson for a health company. Why? Because, and I remember a whole table of these executives in this corporation, they said, well, here's a bonus check. And wow, I'd never seen I'd never earned that amount of money. It was just a phenomenal number for me. And I said, well, how much time will it require? And they told me it'll be about a total of 3 months. That's all, 3 months out on the road. I said, but that's time away from my daughter that I'm raising. Yeah, well, you can get nannies. No, my daughter will never be 6 again. And I want to be there for those transitions, to help her if there's questions, to share as a father that what goes into that mind from her peers and others does not in any way lead her off on the wrong direction. And I said no to it. I got up and I remember walking back to my home up on 86th Street at the time and thinking, okay, I didn't lose a night's sleep because what I would have imbalanced was quality time for myself, all the exercising I do every day, being a coach to thousands of other athletes who wanted to become elite athletes, and the time I wouldn't have to go to the farmers markets, to make my daughter, myself, healthy foods, to be able to socialize and enjoy my friends that I did every week where we go together no matter what. When I was in New York, one night a week, all my buddies and friends, men and women, sometimes many as 12 of us, as few as 4 of us, would have dinner together. We'd go to a Broadway show, off-Broadway, go to a concert, then walk back uptown to 89th and Broadway at about 11 at night to have some dessert. They didn't actually have dessert, they got it for the next day. But it was knowing that I didn't know how long those friendships would last. I didn't know how long people would be in New York. People moved, people changed their life. And so for the moment I was in, I wanted to be there for them, and I was. So I don't have those regrets. But a lot of people I counsel do. It's interesting when you're talking with someone and you're seeing that they're just working themselves into exhaustion. They're stressed. And one person had all kinds of heart problems. And I said, you do know that when you're stressed and you have cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine, catecholamines, and adrenaline all rising to meet the stress, and there's no stress there, it's your perception of something that's not in your control. You're killing yourself because you're changing the electrical charge to your heart. And that can cause all forms of irregular heartbeat. It can cause a stroke or heart attack. They didn't know that. So wouldn't it make sense then to try to deal with stress more appropriately? Turn it down. Don't personalize everything. Nobody gets in a car at 4 o'clock in the morning so that on the Southern State Parkway out in Long Island, they can cut in front of you and to give you the finger. Nobody does that. But you're acting because someone cut you off as if it's personal. It wasn't. So you scream and you yell, you bang on and you get road rage. And just multiply that times all the things that we get angry about. We personalize it instead of simply saying, okay, It's just information. How do I want to respond to it? And the more successful you become in life, the more intense becomes your defense of what you've achieved. Then you can only show people the best of you. You have a whole manufactured persona. Hi, red carpet smile, sign, kiss the babies. But then I see the other side. 11 o'clock at night, they're sitting in my office. I see them without the makeup, without the photoshopping, without the coloration of their hair, without their retainers, their lawyers, their advisors, their corporate board members. No, it's just two people talking. Always starting with what's missing in your life. That if you could do everything all over again, you would. Make a change. And suddenly opens that door and out comes a whole lot of truths that have been hidden. That's the level I help people on. And that's why when people are willing to be vulnerable and go to their dark side, understand it, how did this happen, and deal with the dark side, then all that is positive on the light side, it's just further enhanced, and you bring balance back into your life. You don't need to be the best at something, and you don't need to outdo everyone. You don't have to have the biggest paycheck, get the greatest acknowledgement, get the award. You don't need all that. Just be yourself. Be authentic. Work in cooperation, not just competition. There's something interesting in my particular area of athleticism and track and field, though I was on the varsity team in college, basketball, in high school and wrestling, and etc. But let's just say we're doing a 40K national championship or a marathon. You'll see a whole bunch of us, maybe 10, 15 of us, working together. We're having fun. We're talking about life and our adventures. And let's say that we come up to a water station and some of the guys inside didn't get their water. We'll get extra water. We'll give it to them. Or in some cases, we share water. And because you know that at any given time at the end of a race, one of you is going to win it. But until that, when you finally, and you all acknowledge, and we're all going to be together until that 24th mile. Then whoever's got it wins it. And it's okay because all of us win at different times. So we're a group of people who are cooperating because it makes a big difference when you have all those other people's positive energy and enthusiasm for you. And during the early part of the race, try doing a marathon on your own, and then try doing it with a lot of people where you're sharing energy. We train in our running and walking club so that if someone is losing their pace, losing their energy, we create an energy around them, shoulder to shoulder, literally shoulder to shoulder. And then we have 5 or 6 guys in front of them, and women as well. And we say, now visualize to the person who's tired. They got to drop out. They say, oh, no, don't drop out. Just put yourself into the zone. Visualize yourself as a charioteer. And visualize the reins are energy reins. And white light is coming into your body. And we're making it easy for you to run. And within maybe 100 yards, half a mile, suddenly they got their energy back. That's the power of exchanging energy. If you're just purely competitive, you wouldn't care. If you're cooperating in a competition, you do. I never will forget this one race. There was a man named Schollenthauer, a very good athlete on the American team. And it was in Washington, D.C., and it was a 20K, 12 miles, and just around the loop from the Lincoln Memorial back. And these elite athletes were ahead of us. And there was a group of us who were right behind them, but about maybe 50 yards behind them. And so we were all on our times. Everyone was doing well. And then near the end of the race, one of the guys in the packet leading it pulled back. In fact, he was right where we were. And he was struggling. He was breathing hard. And I said, okay. He says, I'm just, I'm having a rough time. I suddenly saw this guy whip around, come back, and say shoulder to shoulder. Now, mind you, this is a national championship. And these are the guys who are going to be selected from this group, probably, for the Olympics. And with so little time to go, he was willing to sacrifice his time for this guy. And within a short order, he got him back, he talked him back into it. And they caught up with the group a little further on and was able to do well. Turns out this was a total stranger. He didn't know it. That, to me, was the height of sportsmanship. When you care about others, not just yourself. Because for those of us who've won awards, so what? Don't look back at what you've achieved. Look forward at what you can do to show that you're still capable of growing, expanding your consciousness, doing something creative that others can benefit from. As a coach to tens of thousands of athletes, it provides such joy to be able to train people who become really the best at what they do, because then they realize, okay, I achieved something. Let me use that as a new standard. And then you start to change things like, what can I do better? Yes, we can all do better, but I have to give some time and energy to doing better. Can I create? All of us can create in different ways. Then let me give some more time and energy to creating. Can I share with others so it might motivate them to do better in their own life? Of course you can. That's all a part of what it means to cooperate in an overly competitive world. Because I can show you an awful lot of people who were the best of the best, made the most money, had the biggest mansions, the most of all the physical possessions you could ever want. But something was missing. They were never vulnerable. They were always running hard as they could, because they had to be always relevant. I had something unusual happening in my life once. I feel blessed that I had that. I was young, naive, not terribly bright, and I had a chance to meet some very famous people. Purely a fluke. I won't go into how being on a radio show, a television show, someone who was well known in the socialite circle had a problem, called me. I helped her, and then because she was helped, she wanted me to help her friends, and then next thing you know, every other day I was going to go, I have a friend who's got this, I have a friend. And so over a period of a year, I was helping all these people. I didn't know anything about them. I didn't know about the social registry and who was a debutante in the 1920s and 30s and 40s and who owned such and such company, was on the board of this network. I didn't know any of that. All I knew is these were decent human beings that when I was working with them, they were just very thoughtful, very appreciative, and were surprised I didn't accept money for helping them, when everything in their world was based upon wealth and the accumulation of it, and then giving it away if they got it the wrong way. Like Andrew Carnegie, he exploited a lot of people. A lot of people died. A lot of children were exploited in his steel mills. But good for him, at the end of his life, he recognized this, and he built libraries, hospitals, Carnegie University, etc. So there are people who turn around at some point at the moral and ethical level and give back, at least to the degree they can. You can never give back to the people you've exploited and used. And that has to bear silent witness to our lives. That's why it's so important to make conscious choices. Will I hurt someone by my success? So we have this idea that they're winners and losers. No, they're not. There shouldn't be. There should be people who achieve, and then we should mark that achievement and the uniqueness of it. But then people need to stay relevant. The athlete now is being told, well, yeah, for 8 years you were the best, but not now. There's someone else younger, and so time for you to be traded or retire. Think of what it means when the phone doesn't ring. So through these individuals, I was able to meet Gloria Swanson, one of the founders of Hollywood. Yeah, the whole movie industry. She was there with Charlie Chaplin, T.W. Griffith, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., Sr., and Lon Chaney and Mary Pickford. They started Hollywood, a company called United Artists. And then Hedy Lamarr, considered at one point the most beautiful woman in Hollywood, and she had retired. And others that I ended up helping and then befriending. And one thing they all had in common, these very significant people at some point in life, they were more significant than many of the heads of industry that I counseled. Mind you, I counseled over 3,000 very famous people, very powerful people, tens of thousands of just regular people. And I found out that all the famous people were just regular people, disguised as being more significant, more relevant, more attractive. And it's all in the illusion. And one day, Hedy Lamarr, who became a friend, came by, and we were going to go to dinner. And I said, well, have a seat. I just have to finish up a little bit in the other room, then we'll go. And she turned on the television, and there was one of her films on. And she says, do you know how sick I am of seeing myself in all these old films? I said, what's it like? She said, well, the first thing you notice when you're no longer needed and no longer can be exploited is you're no longer relevant. And she said, that's the most painful death to die. Because the people that used to love you and, do the deals, now, has it been, we'll get together for lunch, and there's never a call for lunch. And she says, then you have to rearrange your life and repurpose it because it's over. That part of your life is over. You had that, appreciate it for what it was, then you have to create yourself. And a lot of people, the public has a hard time if you were famous on television, true story, on a morning show on ABC, and you're one of the hosts, and everybody likes you, you're there. I know because I'm there every week. I'm their nutritionist through Alice Fennell, who is the multi-Emmy award-winning person, still alive, by the way, in her 80s, who brought me in to be the health guy, right, on Good Morning America, then AM America, AM New York. And then after about 3 or 4 years, I didn't see this guy anymore, the host, one of the hosts. Then I'm going in to do a little filming on a project I was doing on eating out in New York, the healthiest places to eat. And I see him at the door. I say, hey, how are you doing? I haven't seen you. Oh, yeah, it's been a while. Did you retire from that? He said, well, you have a time when you're on morning television, and then that time goes. He said, it's going to happen to everyone, and indeed it did. And he said, I said, what are you doing now? He said, I'm in the maitre d'. I thought, how are you handling that? I'm sure many people come in who knew you from television, and now you're sitting them at the table. He said, it was hard. But then I just accepted this is the next stage of my life until I find something else. This is what I have to go through. But he also said this. He was a very nice guy. He said, we should never think that we're more important than who we are. We're just people. We're providing a service. He said, you don't walk the red carpet. You don't even report on the people walking the red carpet. You're watching everything as a spectator. And sooner or later, everyone in life becomes a spectator. So don't take your success so personally, and don't obsess over becoming successful, because I've never met a successful person that didn't create imbalances somewhere else in their life. Hidden frequently until the divorce, until something happens that suddenly you're outed for this going wrong in your life. We're just human beings. And most people are pretty decent. Most people are pretty nice. So when we see the person for who they are, no hidden dark side, just a foible, way we live. We all make mistakes. We grow from them if we're smart. We repeat them if we're not. We pretend we're not vulnerable, we're tough. All those tough people, they also have a heart. They're playing roles more often than not. And I've counseled some people who sat by the phone waiting for the calls, and they never happen. Boy, they let themselves go. And when you see it as close as I've seen it, and then you're asked to help someone by an old manager saying, hey, this person hasn't been in a movie in 20 years. It was interesting because one of my friends, in fact, an employee, way back in 1967, who I hired off from Esquire magazine because I was doing a lot of projects and I wanted him as a publicist to promote some of these anti-war projects. In any case, after 3 years, he borrowed some money from me and went to Hollywood. And he became, over years, he became the most powerful publicist in Hollywood. He had like 125 of the most important clients. And he said he wanted to show, when I was out there one day doing the AM show with Regis Philbin, which I used to do all the time, he said, I want to show you something. So he drives down to Malibu. We come to just like a bar. And he said, and it filled, the parking lot was filled. It's the middle of the afternoon, not on a weekend. And he opens the door and walks in. And he said, just stand over here. We're just standing. I said, well, what am I supposed to be seeing? He said, look around. I'm looking around the room. It's packed. And he said, now, let me show you what you may not be aware of. Everyone in this room was a somebody in television or movies at one time. And now they're no longer wanted. Their time has come and gone. And they bemoan that, so they come here to share their pain, their stories of woe, about an industry that only cares about you if they can commodify you and exploit you. So most of these people are living on savings or through the generosity of friends. They'll never work again in the industry, and they're afraid to go out there and try to find a job in the regular world because someone will bring it to their attention. Weren't you a somebody? As if, well, now you're not. And we make way too much of success. Success doesn't mean you're a better person. It's just that you've manifested something that's unique. Good for you. Enjoy it, because everything has an expiration date. Everything and everyone. Don't take your friends for granted. Enjoy them. Don't take your relationship for granted. Embrace it. When you wake up in the morning and you look across at the person that has sacrificed so much to be with you, appreciate the sacrifice that your partner made. And think how privileged you are to have that wonderful soul in your life. Spend time with your children. Spend time with your pets. Spend time with yourself. Keep growing. Don't allow yourself to think because you're older chronologically that somehow all the things you once did you can't do over. There's a whole lot of us that think never act your age, because when you act your age, you die. That's it for today. Hopefully you'll find something of merit in what I was sharing. If not, that's okay. Come back tomorrow and there'll be something else to look into. Go to PRN.Live every day, noon to 1 Eastern Standard Time for my radio show. As you see, I do everything extemporaneously. No notes, just life experience, and keeping a sharp mind by making sure that the priority in my life is my own health, mental, physical, and spiritual, and the desire to share the best that I am, or hopefully can be, with you, to be a support system, so that if you're having problems, whatever those problems are, and sometimes they're relatively simple, if we realize not everything has to be complicated, not everything has to be a arduous chore, I'll be here sharing more with you. Have a nice day.
Are you tired of closed-minded programming? Well, look no further than PRN.Live, the home for progressive voices.